She always believed she was just the maid's daughter, quiet, watchful, easy to overlook. But everything changed the moment Lily Morgan laid her fingers on that gleaming chessboard in the heart of the Grayson estate. What began as a silent visit to her mother's workplace turned into something much bigger, an unexpected invitation from a billionaire, a hidden bond no one saw coming, and a gift that would shake loose a truth buried for almost 12 years. Why did Mr. Whitaker watch her with such intwelvesity, like he was remembering something long forgot 12? And why did her mother fall into a nervous silence every time he was near? Keep please 12ing. Because what started as a child's curiosity will soon unlock a secret that no one was prepared to confront. Don't touch anything. And only speak when spoken to, her mother had warned. This place isn't meant for us, Lily. 8-year-old Lily Morgan gave a tiny nod, tight-welding her grip on her worn-out backpack like it might shield her from whatever came next. Beside her, her mother Angela eyed the towering white pillars of the Grayson estate with thinly veiled anxiety. Perched high above the rolling hills of Pine Hollow, Vermont, the mansion gleamed in the midday sun, its windows catching the light like cut diamonds. The air carried the scent of manicured hedges, fresh paint, and old money. Today, Angela wasn't just a housekeeper. She was also a mother out of options. Lily's babysitter had canceled at the last minute, and leaving her daughter alone wasn't an option, so she brought her along, hoping desperately that the girl could keep to herself. But keeping quiet was never Lily Morgan's strong suit. As they stepped into the marble foyer, her gray eyes widened in awe. Above her, a crystal chandelier hung like a frozen waterfall, shimmering beneath a ceiling covered in golden frescoes. Yet for all the opulence, it wasn't the chandelier or the grand staircase that made her stop in her tracks. It was the chessboard. Nestled in the center of the Grayson Library, surrounded by floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, the board sat like a crown jewel. Lily had never seen anything like it. Each chess piece looked as if it had been carved by hand, bone and ebony shaped into tiny warriors so detailed they almost breathed. A queen with a tiny jeweled crown. A knight mid-leap, frozen in motion. The black and white marble squares gleamed beneath the soft lights like obsidian and snow. Lily, sit by the window and finish your homework, Angela whispered, slipping a notebook into her hands. And stay away from that board. Lily nodded and took a seat. At least her body did. Her eyes? They kept sneaking glances back to the board. The numbers in her math book turned fuzzy. Her mind drifted. She remembered the day Miss Ellison, her favorite teacher, had explained the movements of each piece. That had been the first time math ever made sense. That lesson in class had been the only time numbers actually clicked for her, when they came alive through chess. Then, a deep, calm voice broke her focus. You like chess? Startled, Lily's pencil slipped from her fingers and landed softly on the floor. She turned to see a tall man in a sharp navy suit standing behind her. His silver hair was carefully styled, and his expression was gentle, though hard to read. But it was his eyes, gray like hers, that locked onto her with quiet curiosity. I've never played, Lily replied, stumbling over her words. We just learned a little about it in school. That's too bad, the man said, kneeling so they were eye level. It's a beautiful game. Just then, Angela appeared from behind a tall bookcase, her face tight with worry. I'm so sorry, Mr. Whitaker, she said quickly. She didn't mean to. She's not bothering me, Thomas Whitaker interrupted, still focused on Lily. Actually, I wouldn't mind the company. He turned to the little girl again. Would you like me to teach you? Lily hesitated, her eyes darting toward her mother. Angela looked ready to say no, but Richard's tone turned firm. I insist. And just like that, the first move of something much bigger was set into motion. Lily took a seat across from him, her heart thudding against her ribs. She couldn't tell if this was a lesson, or some kind of test, or maybe something she didn't yet understand. But as Richard began to explain the game, the bold leap of the pawn, the unusual path of the knight, the quiet dominance of the queen, Lily leaned in, soaking it all in like it was air. She didn't just learn the rules. She saw them. Each piece told a story. The pawns weren't just pieces to be sacrificed. They were loyal guards, standing strong at the front lines. The rooks reminded her of stone towers from the fantasy books she loved. Even the queen moved like a force of nature, quiet but powerful. And somehow, it felt like the pieces were whispering to her. You see what you just did? Richard asked as she placed her first piece. That's called intuition. Not everyone has it. They played a short game. Lily didn't win, but she didn't go down easy either. At one point, she maneuvered her pieces so precisely that Richard leaned forward, his eyes narrowing with focus. She'd almost trapped his king. When the game ended, he smiled. Would you like to come back tomorrow? He asked. Lily turned to her mom, hopeful. Can I, Mom? Angela hesitated, clearly unsure. But when Richard nodded and said, if it's all right with you, I'd be honored, she gave a small nod in return. But there was something behind his words, a quiet pause, a flicker of something deeper, like he'd recognized something in Lily that even he didn't expect. Later that night, as they drove through the city lights back to their tiny apartment, Lily couldn't hold it in anymore. Why is Mr. Whitaker so nice to me? She asked. Angela's hands tight-twelved on the steering wheel. He's just being polite, sweetheart. Don't overthink it. But Lily did think about it. She thought about it the entire ride home. She thought about it while brushing her teeth. And she was still thinking about it as she stared up at the ceiling, wide awake in the dark, wondering why a man like that would look at her the way he did. It wasn't just the way he looked at her. It was the way Lily felt while playing, the strange pull, the quiet rhythm, and the way her mother froze afterward, staring at an old, dust-covered box long after she thought Lily was asleep. One photo had slipped halfway out, just enough for Lily to catch a glimpse. A younger version of her mother, smiling beside a man with soft gray eyes and silver hair, the same eyes that now watched her across a chessboard. The next morning, Lily returned to the Grayson estate. The chessboard was already waiting, every piece in perfect place. And so was he. Thomas Whitaker stood by the window, a quiet smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "Ready, Miss Morgan?" he asked gently. "Yes, sir," she said, pulling her red knit cap snug over her ears. This time, she came prepared. Her moves were quicker, sharper. She baited him with traps, let go of a pawn just to steal a rook, and nearly locked his king into checkmate. Not once, but twice. Richard watched her play with a look somewhere between admiration and disbelief. "You're thinking 7 steps ahead," he murmured. "How do you do that?" Lily tilted her head, unsure how to explain. "I'm not really sure," she said. "It's like the pieces tell me what to do. Like they already know where they want to go." Richard's expression shifted. That warm smile flickered into something else. Something heavier, surprise, maybe even sorrow. He leaned forward slightly. "Do you ever dream about chess?" he asked. Lily nodded slowly. "Last night, I saw them dancing," she said. "They followed the rules, but it felt like a secret waltz." Richard let out a quiet laugh, but there was 12 behind it. "What else do you dream about?" he asked carefully. Lily hesitated, then answered without thinking. "My dad." Even she seemed startled by her own words. "He teaches me things in the dreams," she continued. "He's kind. He has gray eyes. Silver hair. Kind of like yours." Behind a nearby bookcase, Angela fumbled and dropped the rag she'd been holding. Lily turned toward the sound, but her mother was already bending to pick it up. Her face turned away, eyes focused anywhere but on them. Richard stood abruptly, the 12 suddenly thick in the room. "I think it's time you got back to your homework," he said, voice low and tight. As Lily packed her things, she could feel him watching her. But it wasn't the way a teacher looks at a student. It was the way someone stares at a puzzle, one that's finally beginning to come together. And all the way home, one question kept circling in her mind like a knight on a board. Why does Mr. Whitaker look at me like he's known me forever? And even more unsettling, is he just my mentor? Or is he something much more personal? What do you think? Should Lily trust Mr. Whitaker? The next afternoon, she couldn't keep still at her desk. Her pencil tapped out an impatient rhythm while her thoughts spun miles away from multiplication tables and spelling quizzes. Miss Ellison called on her twice, and both times she gave the correct answer, without even hearing the question. Her mind had drifted back to the library at Grayson Estate, back to the chessboard, back to the voices she almost thought she heard in the way the pieces moved. By the final bell, Lily bolted from her seat and rushed to the school gates, her legs moving faster than her thoughts. She practically flew into the old van where Angela waited. "You're in a hurry," her mother said, giving a small, nervous laugh. "Lily," her mother said gently, eyes fixed on the road ahead. "You remember what I told you about getting too close?" Lily nodded slowly but didn't look away. "People like Mr. Whitaker, they don't always mean what they say," Angela added, her voice low. Lily's brow creased. "But he's not like that, Mom. He's different. He leaves 12s to me." Angela didn't reply. Instead, her fingers clenched the steering wheel tighter, like they always did when she was trying to hold something back. When they arrived at the estate, something about the place felt different. The grand library didn't seem so cold this time. The air felt warmer, more familiar. And the chessboard? It shimmered like it had been waiting just for her. Thomas Whitaker stood beside it, his calm smile greeting her like a quiet tradition. "Welcome back, Miss Morgan," he said. "Ready to see how much you've grown?" Lily took her seat and adjusted her red knit cap, her small hands steady. "I think I am," she replied. From the very first move, it was clear she had improved. Fast. Within 12 minutes, she'd already taken 4 of his pieces. She spotted hidden traps before they could snap shut. And once, she pushed his king into check using a move so subtle, Richard later admitted most grown players would have missed it. He leaned back in his chair, studying her. His eyes narrowed, not with suspicion, but with something stranger. Admiration, or maybe even fear. "You're seeing the entire board before the rest of us even react," he said softly. "How is that possible?" Lily thought for a second. "I don't think I'm playing against you," she said honestly. "It's more like I'm working with the board. It shows me things, patterns, like little flashes before they happen." Richard stared at her for a moment, stunned. Then he whispered something, almost to himself. "Just like..." Lily tilted her head. "Just like who?" He blinked, then forced a smile. But this one didn't reach his eyes. Do you think about chess when you're not playing? He asked, changing the subject. Lily nodded. Yeah, I picture games in my head before I fall asleep. Sometimes I even dream about them. The pieces move on their own, like they're alive. Richard's hand froze halfway toward a bishop. Then he asked, his voice suddenly more cautious. Do you ever dream about someone teaching you? Lily nodded again, slower this time. Yes, it's always the same man. She paused. He's kind, gentle. He has silver hair, and he always smiles. He plays with me. He tells me I'm brave. Across the room, Angela dropped her cleaning rag again. But this time, she didn't even pre-12 to pick it up. Richard looked directly at Lily, his voice barely above a whisper. Do you know who he is? Lily hesitated. I think he's my dad. Richard closed his eyes for a moment, as if her words had struck him straight in the chest. But before he could say anything more, Angela's voice cut through the air, sharp, strained, and final. That's enough chess for today. He looked toward her, eyebrows raised. Angela, I think we need to talk. About Lily. About what comes next. But she shut it down immediately. We're not having this conversation, Mr. Whitaker, she said briskly. She's just a child. She's here to play a game. Nothing more. She's not just a child, Richard said, quiet but firm. You know that. But Angela was already gathering Lily's things, moving with the kind of purpose that leaves no room for debate. On the drive home, the silence in the van was so heavy, it felt like it filled every corner of the windows. Lily finally turned to her mother, voice soft and shaky. Why won't you let him talk to me about my dad? Why does he look at me like he knows something I don't? Angela kept her eyes on the road, her hands tight on the wheel. Tears welled in her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. Because some truths aren't meant to come out too early, she whispered. And because I'm scared of what might happen if they do. The next day at school, Lily couldn't focus, not even a little. Her pencil barely touched the worksheets. Instead, she filled the margins of her notebook with tiny sketches of chessboards. At recess, her friend Emma nudged her in the ribs. You're being super weird today, she said with a smirk. All you ever talk about is chess. It's just a game with horses and little castles. Lily smiled, but said nothing. Because to her, chess wasn't just a game. It was the only place in the world where everything made sense. That evening, when she stepped back into the Grayson estate, something was different. Someone new was waiting for her. A tall woman stood by the chess table, her posture confident, her eyes sharp but kind. She wore a soft smile that didn't feel fake. Hi, Lily, she said. I'm Dr. Monica Reyes. Your friend here tells me you're quite the player. She's the best, Richard added, standing proudly beside her. Lily blinked. You're a real coach? One of the best, Dr. Lane replied, her voice warm. Think you're up for a game? Lily nodded, heart racing. But the moment the pieces hit the board, she knew. This wasn't going to be like playing with Mr. Whitaker. Dr. Lane's style was fast, sharp, and calculated. Every move felt like it came with a plan behind it. But Lily didn't back down. She leaned in, least 12 to the rhythm of the game, and let the board guide her, just like always. 12 moves in, Dr. Lane paused, her brow furrowing slightly. 20 moves later, she leaned back and whispered, interesting. By the 30th move, Lily leaned in, eyes steady on the board. Checkmate, she whispered. Dr. Lane stared at the pieces like they had just rearranged themselves. You cracked it, she said, stunned. My puzzle, you solved it. Lily gave a small shrug. I just saw it. Dr. Lane turned toward Richard, her voice low and urgent now. She's a phenom. I've never seen anything quite like her. You weren't exaggerating, she added. She has the makings of a world champion. That was the moment Angela stepped into the room. She had only caught the tail end of the conversation, but it was enough. I'm sorry, she said quickly, already shaking her head. But that's not going to happen. She's just a little girl. Dr. Lane stayed calm but firm. She's also a genius. And geniuses deserve a chance to shine. Richard took a long breath, then turned toward Angela, his voice softer now. We can't hide it anymore, Angela. Not the chess. Not the truth. Angela's hands trembled at her sides. Lily, still sitting at the board, looked up at both of them, her eyes bouncing back and forth like a spectator caught in a match she didn't understand. What truth? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. But neither adult answered her. That night, long after they'd returned to their apartment, Lily stood by the window, holding the photograph again, the one she had seen before. The one with her mother beside a man with silver hair and familiar gray eyes. She stared at it for a long time, then turned to the glass. Her own reflection stared back, same eyes, same shape, same quiet storm. She didn't speak the thought aloud, but deep down, she already knew. The morning of the tournament came wrapped in a heavy, nervous stillness. Inside the hotel suite, Lily sat on the edge of her bed, her red knit cap pulled low over her ears. Outside the window, the Portland skyline sparkled in the early sun. She tapped her fingers gently on her knee, bishop to e6. Knight to f4. Queen slides in for check. Across the room, Angela stood stiffly by the desk, arms folded tight. Richard paced near the minibar, unusually silent, his calm exterior cracked by something fragile underneath. Then Angela turned and looked at her daughter. "Lily," she said softly, "we need to talk." Lily looked up, confused. "No? The tournament starts in 2 hours." "It can't wait," her mother said, her voice shaky. Richard gave a quiet nod. He agreed. Lily took a seat between them on the hotel's plush couch, her heart beating hard in her chest. Her mother's voice was cautious, hesitant. "Remember when you asked about your dad?" Angela began. "And I told you not to think about it?" Lily nodded slowly. "You said, some truths aren't meant to be told too early." Angela reached into her bag and pulled out the same worn photograph Lily had seen before. In it, her mother, much younger, stood smiling beside a man with silver hair and the same steady gray eyes Lily saw in her own reflection each morning. This is your father," Angela said quietly. Lily took the photo with shaking hands. Her voice caught in her throat. "Is this?" "Yes," Richard said, barely above a whisper. "It's me." In that moment, Lily felt the world go still. The imaginary chessboard in her mind, the pieces, the strategy, the patterns vanished. "You're my dad," she said softly, almost like she didn't believe the words coming out of her mouth. Richard's eyes were glassy now. "I wanted to tell you. Every single day. But I didn't know how. I didn't want to scare you," he added, his voice cracking, "or make it feel like I was trying to buy my way into your life." Angela lowered her gaze, her voice filled with regret. "When I found out I was pregnant, I panicked," she said. "I left. I didn't want anyone thinking I was after his money. I wanted you to grow up free. Loved. Normal." She swallowed. "But maybe I was wrong to keep it from you." Lily looked down at the photo again, the truth sinking in deeper. "So, that's why you hired Mom? To be near me?" Richard nodded, shame in his eyes. "It was selfish," he admitted. "But the moment I saw you, I knew. Not just because of your eyes, but because of the way you looked at that chessboard, like it was calling your name." Lily blinked hard, trying to keep her composure. "All this time, you were my dad. And I didn't know." "I'm so sorry," Richard said, barely holding back emotion. She looked at him for a long moment, then at her mother, and then back again. "I'm not mad," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm just confused. But I still want to play today." Richard reached out slowly, resting a hand on her shoulder with the kind of care that said he'd been waiting her whole life to do that. "No matter what happens out there," he said gently, "you've already made us proud. Just by being you." 1 hour later, the tournament hall buzzed with energy. Cameras flashed. Reporters murmured. The air felt electric. Kids in crisp shirts with serious faces moved their pieces with focus during warm-ups. Lily sat quietly at her assigned board, her hands folded neatly in her lap, waiting. Then her opponent arrived, full of swagger. 15-year-old Jason Liu, reigning youth chess champion from Oregon, walked in like he'd already won. He glanced at her, then smirked, nodding like she was just another easy match on his way to the top. Michael raised an eyebrow and gave a smirk as he slid into his seat. "Didn't think they let little kids into the finals," he muttered. Lily didn't even blink. "I'm 8. "Not little," she replied, steady as stone. He chuckled, cocky. "This won't take long." But from the very first move, Lily shifted the tone of the game. For her, this wasn't just a board. It was a battlefield, and every piece had a purpose. Michael came in fast and aggressive, but his firepower ran straight into Lily's quiet, calculated defense. She gave up a bishop, but only to corner his rook. She saw openings long before he did, 12 moves ahead, like the pattern was already printed in her mind. The room buzzed. The clock ticked. The crowd swelled. 2 hours passed, and Michael leaned back, a crease of frustration cutting across his face. "How are you doing this?" he asked, genuinely baffled. Lily didn't say a word. Instead, she moved her queen forward with certainty. "Check." Michael blocked it. She adjusted her knight, tight-welving the trap. The 12 vision in the room thickened. Then, deep into the 3rd hour, she spotted the moment she'd been waiting for. A subtle gap in his defense opened, and she slipped her queen right through it. She looked up and locked eyes with him. "Checkmate," she said softly. The room erupted. Applause filled the air. Cameras flashed from every angle. Michael stared at the board, stunned. Then he stood and X12'd his hand. "That was the best game I've ever played," he admitted. Lily gave a shy smile. "Thanks. You helped me play my best." An announcer's voice rang through the hall. "Ladies and gentlemen, at just 8 years old, Lily Morgan has made history. She is now the youngest champion this tournament has ever seen." A sleek trophy was placed in her hands, followed by a crisp check for $10,000. Lily stared at the check like it was made of glass. "Is this real money?" she whispered to Richard. He chuckled. "Very real. What can I do with it?" Richard raised an eyebrow. "What do you want to do?" Lily paused, thinking seriously. "I want to buy chess sets," she said. "For kids who don't have any. So they can learn too." The room went completely silent. Then the applause returned, louder than before. That night, in the soft light of the hotel restaurant, Lily sat between her parents, her gold medal still hanging around her neck, cheeks sore from smiling. Angela looked at her daughter like she was seeing her for the very first time. Richard, sitting beside her, couldn't stop smiling. Pride radiated from every inch of him. I still can't believe I won, Lily said, her voice heavy with joy and just a little sleep. You deserve everything that's coming your way, Richard said, wrapping an arm gently around her shoulders. But I still want to be me, Lily replied quickly. Not someone famous. Not someone different. Just Lily Morgan. Angela smiled, her eyes soft. You'll always be our Lily. 4 months passed. And in that time, everything had changed, and somehow, nothing had. Angela and Lily still lived in their cozy little apartment, but now Richard was part of their daily rhythm. He visited almost every evening. They played chess at the kitchen table, sometimes as opponents, sometimes all four together, working through puzzles like a team. They called it family chess. Back at school, Lily started a chess club. Kids who had never touched a board before started learning the game because of her. Local businesses chipped in, donating boards and timers. Even a few big toy companies began paying at 12 yen. And one afternoon, a renowned grandmaster from Ukraine flew in just to challenge her. You have a gift, he told Lily after she beat him in under 27 moves. But more importantly, you play with joy. And that's rarer than talent. On a snowy evening, wrapped in the warmth of their living room, Lily slid a knight across the board and looked up at her parents. I love you, she said simply. We love you too, they replied together, pulling her into a warm, four-way hug. In that moment, surrounded by laughter, cocoa, and chess pieces that once felt like mysteries, Lily Morgan understood something bigger than any trophy. The real win wasn't about medals or money. It was about having the courage to make the first move, and knowing your family would be right there beside you. Did you feel what Lily felt when she uncovered the truth about her family? Do you think love, just like chess, is really about choosing your next move carefully? If this story touched you, type 100 in the comments. Let us know what country you're watching from. And don't forget to share this story with someone who believes even the smallest player can change the entire game.